So you're considering a move to the Midwest, trying to decide between two cities that aren't that far apart, really aren't that different, but in this case, size may matter. I'm Brian, I'm a realtor here in the Indianapolis area. I appreciate you checking out this page. If you could do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up if you like my video, and when you find something you like, do me a favor and share it because we want to pass this information out to others. All right, so Indianapolis and Cincinnati are only separated by about 110 miles down I-74. Driving by car, depending on how fast you're going, it's going to take you less than 2 hours to get from one place to the other. So these cities are not that far apart, and realistically, they're probably more similar than they are different. Now, I'm a resident of Indianapolis, and so my bias is probably going to show here a bit because I do prefer living in Indianapolis. Truth be told, however, I've never lived in Cincinnati. I have a child who went to school there at the University of Cincinnati, so I do have some familiarity with the area, but again, I've never actually lived there myself. So in terms of size, and this may be one of the biggest differences between the two, Indianapolis has nearly 900,000 people living in the city as residents. Now that's according to the latest census numbers. Cincinnati, only about 310,000. So really about 3 times as many people live in Indy as Cincinnati. Take that for what it's worth. You may like that, you may not, who knows. Now the metro area around both cities, very similar. Indianapolis, right around 2.1 million. Cincinnati, right around 2 million. So the surrounding areas are really not that vastly different. Now, this being a real estate channel, I'm going to start the focus and the differences between the two on real estate. As of the recording of this, the median price point or sold price point for homes in Indianapolis is around $280,000. In Cincinnati, you're looking at about $300,000. So obviously, just by sheer numbers, you're looking at Cincinnati being a more expensive place to purchase a house. So if you're a first-time home buyer, you may consider Indianapolis as a better place to be. Now here in Indy, we have about 55% of residents own their own home as compared to Cincinnati, which is only about 40%. So Cincinnati may be a better location for renters if that's what you need to get yourself started. One of the factors that may come into play when you're talking about purchasing a house is property taxes. Now, property taxes in Indiana are under 1%. They're about 0.86% actually. If you go over to Cincinnati, their property taxes are about 1.5%. So not quite twice as much, but still it is a pretty significant number higher in Cincinnati than it is here in Indy. Now the future outlook for the two cities, it is estimated that by the 2030s, Indianapolis could surpass 1 million residents. So at this point, we're talking about 5 years or so, we could wind up with over 1 million citizens here in the city. In Cincinnati, growth is a little bit slower. City limits in Cincinnati do kind of hinder their opportunities for growth, but they are expected to kind of expand out into the metro areas. I won't say more so than Indianapolis, but still, they're not going to grow at the rate that Indianapolis has the opportunity to do. Now, one of the major factors that helps people determine where they may want to live is job market. It's not just about cost of living, it's about what opportunities do people have when they actually do live there. Now, here in Indianapolis, we have strong opportunities in tech, healthcare, and logistics. We're also a great location for transportation. We are known as the crossroads of America, for goodness sakes. Through Indianapolis, there are several major highways that pass that can get you to all corners of the United States. That is a huge bonus, especially if you're talking about shipping and transportation. The Indianapolis airport, regularly voted as one of the top airports in the nation, if not the world, is an international airport. It also is the hub for FedEx, which of course is a huge business that travels all over the world. Talking about ground shipping and air shipping, all from the FedEx hub here in Indianapolis. Cincinnati is home to Procter Gamble and Kroger, two definitely nationwide companies that have a big impact in their particular fields. Cincinnati is also known for manufacturing. Cincinnati, not necessarily known for its terrific transportation areas. Their airport, not nearly as acclaimed as Indianapolis is. You don't have a lot of major highways that run through the city of Cincinnati. Going along with that, let's talk about income. Here in Cincinnati, the median household income is about $60,000. In Cincinnati, you're only looking at about $55,000. Now, in the end, a difference of $5,000 may not be too much of a difference to some people, may not be that much of an impact, but I suppose if you're looking at making as much money as possible, Indianapolis may be the place to be. All right, the third area that we're going to compare is cost of living. Now, cost of living, it's obviously a very broad particular topic. In Indianapolis, the cost of living is generally lower when you're talking about housing and groceries and utilities. So your dollar is going to stretch a bit farther here in Indy than it might in Cincinnati. People complain about grocery prices no matter where you live, especially with the election that we just had. That was certainly a big topic of conversation. Here in Indianapolis, the cost of groceries are about 4% lower than the national average. In Cincinnati, you're looking at grocery prices that are much closer to the national average. All right, another area of comparison, and probably because we're not that far apart, is sports. Now, I'm a sports guy. Got my Indiana shirt on here today. The cities are actually quite similar when it comes to major sports. We both have professional football teams. We have the Colts, they have the Cincinnati Bengals. Here in Indianapolis, we have a professional basketball team, the Indiana Pacers. We also have the Indiana Fever. In Cincinnati, they don't have a professional basketball team, but they do have a professional baseball team with the Cincinnati Reds, which has a huge following over in Cincinnati and the surrounding areas. I mean, heck, here in Indianapolis, we don't have a professional baseball team. We have a minor league team, but not a professional baseball team. And our minor league team actually feeds into the Pittsburgh Pirates, so we don't have any affiliation to Cincinnati whatsoever. So we have a lot of Cincinnati Reds fans that live here in the Indianapolis area because that is really the closest team that we have to support. Not that far from Chicago for the Cubs and the White Sox, of course. St. Louis, if you want to go a bit more west. But when it comes to professional baseball, Cincinnati seems to be the bigger one around here than any other. Here in Indianapolis, people love their motorsports. Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Indianapolis 500, biggest sports event in the world, outside of maybe the World Cup. That only happens every 4 years. The biggest sports event in the world that happens every single year, Indianapolis 500. In Cincinnati, they don't have that. They may be big race fans over there only because of their proximity to Indianapolis, but that is one of the big things that we have here in Indianapolis that sets us apart from others. In addition to the fact that Indianapolis is the home of the NCAA. So we regularly host the Final Four, whether it's men's or women's basketball. We regularly host many sporting events that are NCAA related. We have the Big Ten football championship that takes place at Lucas Oil Stadium, though that may be changing with the Big Ten expanding, but we're still going to be a regular home for that. We are regularly a home of the Big Ten championship when it comes to basketball for women's and men's. Rotates between here and a couple of other cities, but we are always within that mix. Cincinnati has some nice sports locations. Great American Ballpark for the Reds. You have the field where the Cincinnati Bengals play, though, to be honest, could probably use a bit of an upgrade because it is a bit older. But beyond that, Cincinnati isn't really known for hosting events, especially not when it comes to being compared to Indianapolis. Now, one of the nice things that people like about Cincinnati is its walkability. Now, there are pockets of Indianapolis that have great walkability, and one of the things that Indy is known for is being able to get from place to place without necessarily having to brave the cold or the weather, because we have a lot of tunnels and overpasses that connect buildings together to keep people from having to go outside. It's one of the big reasons that we're a great place to host sporting events or big conventions, because we can do that all year, even though we are kind of a cold weather city. Cincinnati, however, doesn't necessarily have that, but Cincinnati does have hilly neighborhoods and parks like Eden Park that people in Cincinnati do love to go to. They have a great area just outside of Great American Ballpark. That's a park-like setting that's just along the river. Super nice over there. I've been there once before, and I'm a huge fan of that. Indianapolis, more bike friendly. It's set up kind of like a grid, so it's easy to get around from place to place. And of course, we have the scenic Indianapolis Cultural Trail and the Monon Trail that go into Indianapolis or out of Indianapolis and surrounding area. But we do have walkability options, just maybe not quite as, interesting as what you may find in Cincinnati. I mean, our terrain is pretty flat. Cincinnati, a bit more hilly. Now, Indianapolis is stepping up their arts and culture game. They have attractions here like the Indianapolis Museum of Art, and there are several cities around town that have what are called First Friday events, where it's the first Friday of the month, and they do something cool to bring the community together. Cincinnati has a location called the historic Over-the-Rhine district, which is very popular in that location. Now, when it comes to food and nightlife, well, Indianapolis, I gotta say, is not particularly known for a certain food like some cities are, like Cincinnati, for instance. There is a Cincinnati-style chili that is very famous and well known. Here in the Indianapolis area, and maybe this is statewide, you've got your breaded tenderloin that, for whatever reason, is a big deal here in Indiana. I don't know that we're necessarily known for that outside of Indiana, but residents here are certainly in on the breaded tenderloins. We have restaurants here in Indianapolis with St. Elmo Steakhouse that is well known around the country. I know that oftentimes when I'm watching sports on TV that are here in Indy, the broadcasters often talk about going to St. Elmo's. In Cincinnati, they have highly rated spots like Jeff Ribby's Steakhouse and numerous restaurant locations opening in the Over-the-Rhine and the Banks areas. And they also have something called the Taste of Cincinnati that happens on a yearly basis that brings in a good crowd. As far as nightlife goes, well, Indianapolis and Cincinnati are both very similar. Depending on where you go within the city, you're going to find some areas that are nicely walkable, have some bars, taverns, a great nightlife. I know here in Indy, you're talking about Broad Ripple and you're talking about Mass Ave, as it's known here. It's Massachusetts Avenue downtown that has a great nightlife, whether you're talking about millennials or whether you're talking about baby boomers or something for everybody in the Indianapolis area. Cincinnati, I'm sure, has that as well. The Over-the-Rhine neighborhood has historic architecture, breweries, trendy bars, and something called the Findlay Market. So both places probably appeal to diverse audiences, just something that you kind of got to look at yourself if you really want to know more information about that. So speaking for myself, I would push people to move to Indianapolis. Then again, I'm a realtor in Indianapolis, so duh. But what I know about Indianapolis, it's a very family-friendly location. We do have crime, just like everywhere else does, so you have to kind of look at where it is you're going to want to live in the Indianapolis area and kind of check out the crime rate there as a way to see if that's going to be safe for you and family, friends, whomever's going to be there with you. Indianapolis and Cincinnati both offer similar things when it comes to cultural scene and nightlife and food and dining and drinking establishments that you can go and visit. When it comes to sports, you're talking about very similar. Some major sports teams and some minor league sports teams, or they just don't have that. If you feel Indianapolis is right for you, or if you want some questions answered about Indianapolis and I can help you with that, feel free to drop me a comment. Feel free to reach out to me. I will put down in the show notes your contact for me so you can subscribe to my newsletter to get more up-to-date information on the Indianapolis market, or just to find out more information about Indianapolis in general. There's a way to contact me through that link. Once again, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, and if you wouldn't mind sharing this, I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in Indy.